So my memories of the COVID time that we had, some of them were positive and some of them were negative. I suppose for my family, having a wife who is a nurse, I work in a funeral company, so therefore we were pretty at the sharp end of some of the COVID stuff that was going on. I also have a mother-in-law who has health issues and two children at school. So we found ourselves quite often guarding very carefully about where we were, what we were doing, and some of the symptoms that were sometimes showing themselves in our family. Fortunately, my wife and I only had COVID once. My children had it a few times. From a positive perspective, one of my children didn't go to school, so therefore did learning at home. And for her, that was she quite enjoyed that. But for my son, who has special needs, he still continued to go to school all the way through COVID. And for him, it was a very positive time because there was a lot fewer children at school, and so therefore his class was only about 2 or 3 people in his class. So he had a lot more personal attention in the fact of learning, and his maths and English increased incredibly. So for him, I would say COVID was quite a positive thing in his learning. I personally enjoyed going out for that half an hour in that lovely weather. If you remember rightly, it was so hot, wasn't it, at that time, which seemed a bit criminal that we could only go out for half an hour. But then, of course, when we were allowed to a little more freer time, I started to cycle. My wife and I used to cycle together. Roads were still very quiet. So they were positive times that we could go out and enjoy the creation and the lovely area that we live in. I don't really think anyone really knew what COVID was going to, the effect COVID was going to have on our community. And I guess we're still reeling from some of the fallout of what COVID has left us with, the legacy it's left us with. For me personally, and I think probably I could speak for my wife as well, we quite enjoyed dipping into streaming of church life on a Sunday morning, where we could watch a number of churches, including some of my family who are in the ministry around the country. So therefore we could dip into various services. So whether that was a positive thing or not, I'm not quite sure, but it was, for a while, it was quite enjoyable. As time progressed, I become a little more dissatisfied with that, because I don't think it was actually itching where I was scratching and all that malarkey. I don't really think that helped me in my walk in my Christian faith. I think so far as the church is concerned, in some of the things that how churches progress with COVID, some churches did it well. Obviously streaming services, and I know some churches, some local churches here, actually found their congregation increase quite considerably around the world, and I mean around the world, where they were watched. However, what we've done since, I'm not sure is so positive. I think there are some churches that have moved on and actually picked up the baton or the challenge, and I think there are other churches that I believe have gone backwards, and have not really taken on perhaps what we learnt through COVID. I think it's quite difficult to move a church into something new because of the established church, and breaking down some of those fundamental views and beliefs that people have sometimes take a very long time. For me personally, I quite like the challenge of doing something new. It's risky, it's rocking the boat quite often, and sometimes unfortunately it upsets people. However, it doesn't mean to say it's wrong. And moving the church forward in a new measure, in a new direction, is something I think we should have learned through COVID. And because we have a nucleus of people now who suffer, who are suffering because of COVID, and perhaps what church hasn't actually addressed, and that's perhaps some of the well-being and the mental health and some of the caring that perhaps we should be doing as a church. I believe we had an opportunity, a huge opportunity, and for some of us and some churches, I think we might have missed the boat. I hope that isn't the case, but God knows, and there are some churches, on a more positive point, that actually have taken that and used it and have seen some mega growth in their churches and their ministry grow incredibly as a church. So COVID has taught us quite a bit, I think, and has challenged us a lot. And I think will continue to challenge us. Hopefully we will be able to move forward and see our churches not only grow, but grow spiritually. The body of Christ grows spiritually as well. I hope my thoughts and some of the things I've said will help you think through the progress of the church and our lives as Christians. And I hope that if you have a question and you want to meet and chat over a coffee, I'll be very happy to do so and discuss some of the things perhaps I've said. God bless you. Have a great day.